Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to part 4 of this week's episode of Leading Our Own Way. We're getting into some valuable insights from this week's guests that you can definitely apply to your own journey. Please definitely stay tuned for advice and inspiration that can help us all. If you missed the first part of the week in part 1, 2 and 3, definitely go back. The show notes should be filled with all the links, so go and click on them if you need to catch up. Also, definitely subscribe to the channel and all the other ones if you can. It's going to really help the show. But for now, enjoy the rest of the story.
I couldn't take it anymore, so I said to my husband, I'm going. He says, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to her place of employment. I'm going to her job. Like, maybe she got delayed. Maybe, there's a meeting or something. And I don't know, but I'm just going. I couldn't sit around. So I went on the highway, and it was one of the 401, which is like a fast highway. And I saw the sign for her road, and it said Canafton Road closed. And I said, okay, everything. I mean, in my heart, I knew
Did you?
something bad had happened. But so I just drove past it and thought, okay, I didn't even think about where am I going to go now, because it was just minutes later that my phone rang, and it was my husband. In those days, I didn't have the hands free, so I pulled over and I answered the phone, and he said, you need to come home. The police are here. And I knew as a nurse that if there was an accident and she was okay and she was, at least alive, they would say, go to the hospital. So I knew then that she was gone. So I drove back home, and it was truly one of those moments with Carrie Underwood. I don't know if you know her, Jesus Take the Wheel.
I don't.
Because,
the name rings a bell.
And that's one of the songs. And it's just Jesus Take the Wheel. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it on my own, because I don't know how I drove home the erratic speeds that day. And I don't know how I safely got home. I guess I was meant to be here. And I walked in the house, and the police were here, and the victim's witness, and they didn't say anything. They didn't tell me. I just looked at them, and I went over to the one police officer, and I called him a liar. I said, you are a liar. You have the wrong person. It's my daughter. I didn't identify her, and you have the wrong person. And then I collapsed.
And you collapsed.
That was the beginning
of
my journey.
True raw feelings coming out. How did he respond to that?
Pardon?
How did he respond?
The police officer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just collapsed to the floor. I don't know.
Of course. Yeah. Sorry, you did say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Did you make that connection? Did you draw that connection after the phone call from your husband, that road? Or did that not even enter your head still? Or
when
did you just know?
I saw that the road was closed,
and then
thought,
the phone call.
Gosh, there's been an accident. I wonder if Andrea was part of that accident. And then once he phoned, I knew. It was just the two together. I knew then that that she was gone. Like I said, I knew that she wasn't, it would have been horrible to see her in the hospital, but I knew that she was gone because I wasn't directed to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, you only I suppose people who work in the industry can know those details, right? I guess.
I mean, I was in the town where the hospital was. I could have been to the hospital in 10 minutes, closer than if I went home.
Yeah.
So I knew that if I wasn't directed to the hospital, that she was gone, that she was, and when I walked in, the victim's witness, all she said was she went instantly.
So for that to happen, it must have been a very serious accident. Was it a high profile?
I didn't explain the details there. I got sidetracked. They were turning left.
Yeah.
And they were stopped, and a transport truck hit them from behind. He was texting, having an argument with his girlfriend on the phone, pushed them into the oncoming traffic where they were hit yet again by another vehicle and T-boned. So Andrea, the passenger, and her co-worker, the driver, were killed instantly. It was a horrific accident. It was horrible. The highway was closed for hours and hours, and then the trial was a 5-day trial, and they had cell phone experts from 3 different cell phone carriers, and the reenactment of the whole scene, and just for 3 years I didn't grieve. I didn't grieve.
Waiting for the
Because it
trial?
was on
Was
the
that waiting
radio
for
all
the
the
trial?
time. It was so high profile, and I didn't grieve. I just existed.
Because I'm obviously outside of Canada. Was it all over the news? Being high
Every
profile?
time the radio was on, it was, we're in a town of about 60,000 people, so it's not that big.
Yeah.
And where it happened, and just the fact that he was a transport truck driver of a major company in this area, right? And so it was on the radio all the time, and
You couldn't
was
escape.
just no getting away from it. It was trigger after trigger after trigger, and so there was no trying to grieve and rebuild your life, because it took 3 years for the closure, and of course he walked away a free man. So
he didn't serve time.
no.
Why didn't he serve time?
The prosecution had charged him with they wanted to, of course, get him criminally so that he would, go to jail. But the prosecution had failed to submit some paperwork. So when the judge made his statement, he said that, and he said, because these papers are not here, I can't find you criminally responsible. Yes, you caused the accident, but I can't find you criminally responsible. So he walked out a free man. He went out that day, lit up a cigarette, and went on with his life. And I'm imprisoned for life without my daughter. Yeah.
Did you? I don't know how these things run afterwards, so I apologise my naivety on it. But did he ever make contact with you? Did he ever come and speak to you?
No.
Apologise?
No.
Not that it would have made any difference.
I heard there was a lot of, we had like a civil lawsuit that went on for, that was 3 years. And then after that, it was probably another 4 years for the civil lawsuit. And so I was constantly going to the lawyer and, papers, and there was also court hearings for that too. So another reason that grief couldn't be, dealt with in a normal way for me. Sorry, what was your question? I forgot what I was saying there.
No, I asked the question before you went to do with the civil lawsuit. Did he ever make contact with you? Did he ever come and speak to you?
I had started to say that because of that, the lawyer had told me that he had heard the family, I guess he had connections, that he was not doing well emotionally. And this was about, 6 years in, and he was not doing well emotionally. I'm like, well, of course, anger is one of the biggest things that I've had to deal with. Was the first ugly phase of grief that I've had to deal with and still deal with today. And I'm working on it, but it's a flicker of anger that lives in me, and it doesn't take much to be ignited. But the anger, in those days, well, I hope he's mentally disrupted. I hope he can't cope with life. I hope he kills himself, right? That was my response.
How do you feel now towards
Now
him?
I don't really care. It's kind of, I'm neutral. It's like, whatever. You know what? He'll have to answer. I mean, people say to me that it's probably that he didn't set out that day to say, well, I'm going to go kill 2 people, right?
No, of course, yeah.
It was an accident. But maybe if you weren't on your cell phone, and so that's something that I plan on doing. In the very near future, I'm hoping to get some sort of organization going and awareness about distracted driving, because we all do it. And we don't think about the consequences. And cell
We don't.
phone use is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. I was going to ask. I was going to actually ask you then. Is that part of? Is that part going to be a part of your journey? Is the
Yes,
phones and distraction?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to do that years ago. I had a binder, and I, had all my information, and, I was even going and getting some education on what to do, how to start a group, and but grief took over.
Yeah.
But that's something I would really really like to do now. Even if I don't start an organization, I'd like to talk more about it. I'd like to maybe go into the schools where children, even before they get their license in elementary school, grades 7 and 8, and just do a talk and just create awareness, right? I mean, it starts. The electronics and the cell phone, it starts young, and
It
so you
does.
need to get them young
Mm.
and create the awareness that this is not to be used when you're driving, right?
People are feeling safer with their devices from pretty much day dot now, because they're given, well, if they're not given a device from day one, which they're not going to be given a device as a baby, I know that, but I mean from the point that they can actually hold something, they actually see their parents on phones. So then eventually they, the people that they love and around, they can see this thing in their hand and think that's normality. So then eventually they're getting at one. I see kids in prams being held with a device, and it becomes their best friend more than a human.
Hmm.
So they're gonna have that. You're right. They're gonna have that in the car immediately. I mean, I remember when I first started driving, I had a phone in my car. We didn't even have hands on. I just remembered loving plugging my phone into the device, into the headset in the car, and I just loved that I was able to connect the
Yeah.
phone to the car. I remember my friend not long ago, one of my guests actually, I've known him for a long time. He said, "You were one of the first people I met who had Bluetooth in the car," and I couldn't believe that you could have hands free. But even having hands free doesn't actually stop people. I mean, now you can text by talking into it, by pressing a button and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
Siri, text, blah, blah." Maybe there's further steps we can take in education
Well,
to,
and distracted driving, I mean, it is cell phone use, which is I
yeah.
mean, I can't say the
Oh,
statistics now because I haven't really done the current research for it. I was up on it at one point, but
yeah,
I do know that cell phone use is the dominant one. But I mean, distracted driving comes in many forms,
it
right?
does. Yeah.
And it's just being aware, not just like the electronics, but like eating. You get a burger, you go, and like, it's against the law here. You can get charged if a
Oh, for
police
eating.
officer sees you eating as you're driving. You can get
Wow.
charged.
Yeah. I don't know about the rule here, if I'm honest. I'm not too
Here you
sure.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that the same of drinking a coffee then?
um I don't
See, for
I
me, the
don't.
action's the same. Whether you're eating something or putting a drink in your mouth,
It's a
the
little
action
more
is the
intense
same.
if you're eating a hamburger or eating a sandwich, because then I mean, you got to think about it. You can drop it. It can. Yeah, it's a little different than having I'm not sure. I
Mm.
think, I believe it's the eating. I'm not sure the detail about, drinking coffee, right?
No, well, we could dive deep into all of that, couldn't we? I mean, I know we're not here
Oh
for that,
yeah,
but
that
we
that
could.
it's big,
Yeah,
right?
it is
And
big.
I'd like to, I'm gonna do my own research there and try to go a little further and do my thing to increase awareness for distracted driving, because if he wasn't, I mean, I don't know what life would have brought us, but on
Mm.
that particular day, if he wasn't using his cell phone and having an argument with his girlfriend and concentrating on driving that big ass truck, my daughter would be here,
Absolutely.
or the accident wouldn't have happened.
And this thing happens a lot, so it's something that we
Mhm.
definitely need education on, as a
Mhm.
foresight,
Yeah.
not a hindsight
So that's
situation.
been one of, anger needs, like you were saying, you need to get to the source. Well,
Mm.
I believe the biggest source for my anger was that, the biggest root of my anger was that.
Absolutely.
And anger, I mean, it comes, you can have many reasons for anger and grief, right? You're angry at your child for leaving, your loved one for leaving, you're angry at the doctors because they didn't do their job, or angry at illness because it attacked my child or my loved one. But, you know, for me, it was completely directed towards that driver. And I've resolved that part now, but the anger is still there. So I
Yeah.
have to do more research on that one too.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And it's good that you're willing to, right? Because some people hold on
Yeah.
to that part forever in a really probably negative way. That's not going to help you for the rest of your life. Do you think, on that note then, do you think him serving time, no, the journey that you're on now and where you're at now and being the strongest you've ever been, do you think him serving time would have helped you?
No, at the time I said, and I said it then and I say it now, that I never looked to the judicial system for healing.
Yeah.
I never, because really, I mean, I thought of it then and I think of it now, and it's so true that if he went to jail for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it wouldn't matter.
Mm.
It wouldn't matter because he's still going to come out and he still caused the accident. And at the end of the day, I still don't have Andrea. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters less to me now. At the time, it was a little more devastating, right?
Sure.
To know that this man walked away free. But you know what? That's between him and God. He can figure that one out.
Sure.
That's not for
Do
me
you,
to figure out. I'm not here to judge.
No, of course, and the reason why I ask these questions, and it will probably hopefully help with the next question I'm going to ask. People who are sitting here angry and upset and have anger towards somebody for causing that pain.
Mm-hmm.
You hearing that he was struggling emotionally, did that bring you any relief? Did that bring you any sadness towards him? What were you
Well,
feeling
my
when you heard?
reaction at that time was just, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Like I'm
What?
glad I'm glad you're suffering because I sure am.
Sure. What about now then? If he was
Now,
still feeling now,
now
do you hope he's gone on the same journey as you to recover, or do you not even think about it?
I'm just kind of neutral. I don't think about it. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
It doesn't affect my life
sure.
now. The only thing that affects my life is that I don't have Andrea. So I don't
Hmm.
think about that.
Yeah,
I just think about missing her and not having her. So I guess I've kind of made peace with that. Maybe I have made peace with him and don't realize it.
yeah.
I don't know.
I really hope you do
Yeah.
have peace with him. I don't think you need that on you. The next journey after the loss of Andrea wasn't easy either, was it? What was the next part of your journey after losing Andrea?
After the accident,
Yeah,
I existed. My heart was beating, and I was like I was living outside of my body. You see movies where, near-death experiences and people are, angelically watching as they're trying to do CPR. That's kind of like how I felt. I felt like I was living outside of my body. I was totally disconnected from the world, from my husband, from my family. I was highly medicated. Um, my husband took, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks off, and he was my caregiver. And he would tell me, okay, it's time to have breakfast. And I'd eat and go back to bed. And then, he would say, have you showered? When's the last time you showered? When's the last time you brushed your teeth? And, he would guide me to do those things because I was so completely broken that the normal activities of daily living was obsolete.
yeah,
And that's how I carried on. And then he went back to work and I did pretty much the same thing. Stayed in bed and he'd come home. He always comes home at lunch, so he'd come home, get my lunch, and then gradually, you know, um, the spring came and I would go outside the door, and or I would go with him in the car, and little flickers of life would enter in. And then I met up with the support groups. Of course, I saw my doctor regularly for adjustment of medication. And, my doctor was really good. I could spend an hour there and just cry. So that was, therapeutic for me. I saw her once a month. I got a counselor, and my counseling sessions were twice a week and then once a week, and all based on my needs. And I ended up having counseling for 9 years, the same counselor. And for 9 years, I had the same counselor. So gradually, whether you want to move along or not, time has a way. Time is a passageway, and we just carry on through this passageway. And before you know it, months, weeks, and months have gone by, and you're starting to connect with life again in small, tiny ways.
So that small, simple step towards the beginning, the very beginning of your recovery, was those snippets of spring, that weather changing, that sun being out, having that little
Yeah,
get
and
outside
I
time.
had one day, it must have been in May, I was at Andrea's place of rest, and where she is located is the very last row, and then behind her is a grassy area, and then just a bunch of sumac trees. And this one time I was completely wanting to be 6 feet under with Andrea. I was laying on the grass, and I was not even knowing, just completely gone with her. And I was startled by a tap on the shoulder.
Join us tomorrow to hear more from today's incredible guests and learn valuable insights to help you lead your own way. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.